So from the smart cloud to the payments. So let's go to know about how we can use the payments, not only for our transactions, but also to creating ecosystems using the payments. And for that, we have here with us the guys from Globant. Globant is a key player in the digital transformation space that is helping the companies to reinvent themselves. And I want to introduce, first of all, Manuel Muñiz, that is the Managing Director of Globant, and also Rafael Vigueras, that he is a Finance Consultant Director at Globant. So we are going to enjoy a very interesting conversation between them to understand the challenges, the opportunities on the new ecosystem of payments. So thank you very much for coming. Got the micros. There.
Hola. Hello? Can you
Hello.
hear me? Yes? Okay, hi everyone, and thank you for being here. We are competing with the high-profile politics on the main auditorium, but they cannot scare us. So we're here today, Rafa and I, to have a chat with you about payment value ecosystems. As many of you know, the surge of digital transformation and the acceleration of technology has brought with it new business models, a new consumer behavior, and a much more empowered consumer who is taking decisions on the go and instantly. Based on that, many new models and many new ways of interaction appear in which consumers need to pay on the go, consumers need to make transactions among them, and with many services which are not always present, but in different places. If you can move, we need the slide. Sorry. Okay. Thank you for that. I thought you had it.
Sorry.
Okay. Maybe you can, yeah, okay. So basically, as I was saying previously, the digital payments space is rocketing, driven by technology, driven by a new consumer behavior, and driven by many new business models, you know, in-car payments, car sharing, and many others. The global payments revenue today is around 2 trillion and is expected to surge up to 3 trillion about 2026. And the main driver of it is e-commerce. As you know, you can think about yourselves. Think about how many transactions you do today digitally, as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 years ago. You are doing more and more transactions through the internet, through your mobile device, or through your laptops. And all that brings with it many new ways of interacting with the service and product providers. So these are the trends. So Rafa, what are your main views or your main opinions about this new busting sector or this new category and the trends around it?
Good morning, Manu. Good morning, everyone. Well, I think we have to start with the basics, and the basics is the way we used to pay and the way we pay right now. So we used to pay with credit cards, or we used to transfer money to another account, and now with these numbers and trends that Manu has explained, there's 5 billion users of smartphones and of internet worldwide, and this means we can do a payment anywhere, anytime for clients and for business. And to me, that's the biggest change to start. The biggest change is how we pay. And right now, we are starting to pay in new ways, and this means we have to cover new offerings, more secure, and more convenient for everyone.
So, I mean, all these changes and all these new players around this category of payments, how do you think banks are swallowing it? And how do you think they are trying to adapt to these changes?
Okay, so this is very interesting. I'm gonna put an overview of the payments ecosystem, and the really interesting thing is that if we think about banks, they used to be on both sides of the map. They used to be on the issuing side with the issuing of cards, and they used to be on the acquirement with the POS, the physical POS. And now, if we attend to data, 49% of the e-commerce transactions are done through wallets, and 33% of the POS transactions also are done through wallets. So this means that the capabilities the banks had, which is card issuing and physical POS, and their model to offer the clients the POS, was changed, and now they need to develop these new capabilities, which are more technological. So they're not on their core, and they need to develop this to approach to their clients and keep their relationship.
What about the ownership of the customer? What role is that playing for banks? I tend to think about the dilemma that many telco players faced in a different sector, where they were providing all the network, all the infrastructure, and then they were struggling because the endpoint with the customer was being handed over to different players. And it seems like something similar is happening in this space. Do you think banks are afraid of losing the customer? And how do you think they are going to react to that?
Of course, it's a great question. Banks are here in this map because of two reasons. One of the reasons is the boost on the e-commerce side. They have always been on the acquiring side, and they want their share, but also because of customer knowledge. And customer knowledge is key for banks for several reasons. The first one is their main asset. Banks have basically a monopoly in which they know what the client earns and what the client spends and how they do it. And now you see on this map that there are many players entering in different stages. We see different kinds of acquirers, we see gateways, we see processors. And we also see new ways of having this convenience in the merchants and in the cardholders. And banks are afraid to lose this knowledge. And this knowledge is key because of their business model. Their business model is about being on this transaction and know their client, but it's also about lending. And when we hear in payments about buy now, pay later, and all these latest trends, what we have to think about is about the model, the risk model that is behind who do you lend to. And also there's another reason, and it's because in emerging markets like LATAM, you need to, in order to achieve your objectives, you need to grow heavy. And the only way to grow heavy is to grow into population that is not already in the banking system, and you have to know them through their transactions. So this is key for banking, and I think it's not they are afraid, it's they are fighting the war of data with other new players.
Yeah, and there are differences among geographies. I mean, if you look at LATAM, for example, as opposed to Asia, the search of credit cards in LATAM is being relevant, and instead in Asia, it's more like peer-to-peer payment. And also at the same time, there are new players with very strong technology platforms like Stripe, for example, which are wiping off the banks in many of these steps of the value chain. Where do you think that the right to play of banks is higher throughout the whole process? And also, if there is any difference geographically as where the banks have a more important role?
Yeah, of course there's a geographical difference, and I think as we are in Spain, I can explain with an example. There is, I previously mentioned the wallets, but there is also the important side of account to account, which is basically what in Spain, for example, is Bizum, and I can name in Latin America Cody or other platforms for transfers. And if you see the map, it depends on the geography, because here account to account is owned by the banks. But for example, the most important platform in the world is in China, is WeChat. And WeChat is a messenger app. It's similar to WhatsApp. And people, what they do is they transfer funds to WeChat and they do account to account all the time. So there, the banks are losing their relationship to a client, and it's a difference per geography. And also we see that whenever we have to see the whole map, we see another trend, which is that banks are going outside of their capabilities. So if we look at this slide, they used to be on the issuing bank, and they used to be on the financial acquirer. And now we see all of these players that they have to reach agreements in order to provide their customers, their merchants and their cardholders.
Does regulation play a relevant role here? I mean, most tech players tend to try to avoid heavily regulated businesses, and some claim that the reason after so much money pumped into high-tech startups into this space is because of the lack of regulation. Do you think that lack of regulation is affecting, how the competition is taking place, and is it also hindering the competitiveness of banks?
It's very interesting because I see two moves that are opposite. On the one side, we can see that, of course, it plays a part in the moment that the issuing bank and the acquirer are playing a part providing the accounts. So this used to be the place where technologicals didn't want to be. Also, there is regulation like PDS2 in Europe and other regulations in America that are ongoing. But I think that the technologicals, as long as they don't have the requirements of the bank in terms of cost and provisions, they are not so afraid. And the latest news is about Apple providing these deposits, and we see how successful this has been. So.
And what about consumer trust? I mean, there was a time where I'm pretty sure all of you recall that it was unthinkable, back in the day to fly in low cost because you were afraid of your safety. Also, there was a time where you would not consider being in a telephone company which was none of the incumbents. And in the same way here, it's about payments and about money. And it appears that all the development of this sector is linked to consumers losing their fear of interacting with different players. Do you see any difference of that in terms geographically? I mean, are consumers more daring in some continents than others, or is it general, like, people are just going for it?
Well, of course there's a difference because Europe is more prone to banking, so there is a difference. But I would say the consumer is thinking about convenience. And whenever they see a convenient tool for payments, they do it. And there are another two additional effects. One is that most of this process is transparent. So if I ask a regular person who doesn't know about payments, about Adyen, is one of the biggest providers of acquirance and gateways, and maybe many people don't know it, and they are behind places like Amazon in certain countries, so there is an effect in this. And the latest one, and you know more about this, Manu, is that there is a trust in technological brands that is superior to the trust of some banks.
Yeah, no, I was going to add that there is a generational factor here. Many of the adopters of new technology are younger people, and younger people trust tech companies more than they trust banks. In fact, they tend to distrust banks, and one of the key challenges of financial institutions is to be able to capture these new generations as customers. So they are maybe more comfortable, interacting with Amazon or Google than to interacting with one of the incumbents where most of us have our savings accounts. So Rafa, going maybe to the next slide. So what would you think would be, holistic or comprehensive approach if you were a financial institution as to where should you focus your efforts to be relevant in this space? I mean, what kind of steps would you take? What would be your kind of like roadmap or cheat sheet in order to decide where to play?
Great and complex question. First of all, what we see is that you have to think about where do you want to provide value to your customers and how do you want to solve it. So we're seeing many people trying to acquire payments capabilities. And I think you have to go a step back and think about if you want to go to the large merchants or if you want to go to your traditional niche with a small and medium enterprise. And then you have to think about what is your value proposition. So do you have a product that is differential for these SMEs? Do you have the capabilities to process payments for a large merchant in many countries? And once you have that, then you have to think about monetization, because on big players, of course, you have the volume, but it's really demanding to establish relationships with gateways, with verticals, with the marketplaces like Shopify integration. So it's really hard. So you have to think about this strategy and how you monetize this, because you can monetize it on the other side of the payments. For example, if you have a great relationship with a large merchant, you can connect this experience to your cardholder users, the issuing side, and then you can provide experiences like loyalty programs and many other things. And that way you do it as a whole. So I would say think your strategy and then build the capabilities.
Yeah, spot on. And one of the things that is perceived by the super empowered consumer is that whenever the experience is not seamless and is not excellent, they immediately switch to a different player. And it appears that traditional players are struggling much more than new ones in terms of providing that seamless experience, both from a UX or from an interface perspective, but also from a performance and tech platform view. Do you think that banks are equipped or are capable of catching up in terms of both dimensions, experience and tech platform?
Well, I see that they are trying a strategy with technology that is trying to acquire providers or platforms that let them develop the needs of the customer so fast as they need, because if they do it on their own, they can reach. So I would say that is a mix, but maybe we can talk about a little bit about this experience we had, because I am on the financial side and Manu is a specialist in technology and customer digital transformation. And we had this experience with a big international bank who saw that they wanted to boost their issuing side, and they saw they had a problem with chargebacks and disputes. And so what we did, maybe you can provide more detail, Manu, is to rethink their journey on these disputes and help them solve this.
No, I think technology is just an enabler and it's just an instrument. In many cases, we see in our experience partners or customers coming to us and telling us, we need to rebuild our platform. And then we start asking questions. Why do you want to rebuild your platform? What do you want to do? And in the end, it all comes down to what you just said. What exactly you want to do? Where do you exactly want to provide value? Do you have the right to play? And what are the type of experience and differential value that you want to provide to your customers? And from that onwards, you start designing, the features and the platform behind it. And but that is after the right strategy. So many times people come to us with specific pain points along the value chain because it's very fragmented. And then in the end, the value, the problem comes right before that, which is they don't have a clear understanding of what they really want to do.
Yeah, and I think the mix we do is great, because we don't want to sell the customer any solution. We do have solutions. We have a payments studio. We have many digital marketing, customer experience sites. We have many things, but we say, hey, wait, let's wait a minute. Let's think about these frequent pain points and how do you want to monetize, and then we can think about a plan.
Yeah, technology comes after. First, you need to have a clear understanding of what you want to do. Then you need to understand the business case behind what you want to do. Is it worth doing, and are you capable of doing it? And then you need to understand if those capabilities are present in your company or not. And if not, you need to acquire them or find the help of someone external. And based on that, then you need to execute. And all that is a lot easier to say than to do. That is the reason that we, as Globant, participate and have success in this space. I don't know if you want to close with any statement or any conclusion about this space. Rafa, I give you the last word.
Thank you very much. No, I would say that payments is a very exciting sector because we mix the technological capabilities with the strategy of the partners and with the knowledge. So there are going to be many conferences in this room, and this might be one of the few where you can mix technology, data, modeling, and even platforms, technological platforms on the cloud. So that's very interesting to be, and we hope to be there in the next following years.
This is payments, value ecosystems. I think this is just the beginning. Probably if we come next year and we speak about the same topic, there will be many more things that have happened in between, many more business models and many more ways of interacting between companies and consumers and among consumers. So let's see what happens.
Thank you very much.